This is Charlie from Silent Stardom Talkies. Thank you for joining me on part 2 of my discussion on Betty COMPSON and her career going from Silent to Talkies. If you have not watched my first video about Betty COMPSON, you might want to do so before you watch this one, because some of this might not make as much sense, but you know what? Watch them out of order. It's up to you. The important thing is that we discover the talent and wonder of Betty COMPSON together. With the success of The Barker, which, as I stated, was her Oscar-nominated performance in 1929, Betty's star was on the rise again. In 1929, she starred in 3 more films at Warner Brothers, including On With the Show, a musical which grossed $2 million at the box office, which would be $17 million today adjusted for inflation, and showcased her singing voice. She also made Street Girl for RKO, which grossed over $1 million at the time. This musical allowed for Betty to showcase her violin talents on the screen for the very first time. To music composed by Oscar Levant. Coincidentally, I just 2 weeks ago saw Sean Hayes' brilliant performance as Oscar Levant in Goodnight Oscar on Broadway. If you're in New York before it closes, you have to see it. You just have to. It'll take your breath away. But what a small world that he also composed the music that Betty played on her violin in one of her first successful talking films. Here it is.
Though my lonely heart is now in pain, still I feel my dreams are not in vain. Visions I see of the home for me. In my heart I keep my dreams of me, clinging.
A curious talkie that she made in 1929 was The Great Gabot with Erich von Stroheim, about an insane ventriloquist and his doll, Otto. Although Betty and Stroheim received good notices, the film itself was not a commercial success, although it has achieved quite a cult following over the years. Moving into the 1930s, Betty seemed to be riding the wave of success into the talkies, into a new decade. In 1930 alone, Betty, still freelancing, made 9 movies at Universal, Warner Brothers, Paramount, and RKO. I say freelance, but there is evidence that she could have had an RKO contract. Perhaps she had the option to be loaned out. Either way, she was so in demand that multiple studios wanted her to be the leads in their pictures. Of these 9 films, Case of Sergeant Grishka got okay reviews but lost money, while Isle of Escape was a hit and got better reviews. Betty began playing different types of characters this year, often more virtuous versions of My Girl, as in Those Who Dance and Isle of Escape. And Inside the Lines, which I'll show you a clip of in a second, Betty was a cool British spy masquerading as a German spy during World War I. As a later film historian stated, Betty in this film is unfussy and sensual compared to the other more rigid theatrical stars of the time period, which I agree. Take a look.
Yes, indeed. Do you think her picture is like her, Miss Cotier?
It's perfect. Simply perfect. I always thought the hair was glorious. And the eyes. What expression. Tell me, does it still make your heart beat faster, Rachel?
Well, yes, it's a dashed good likeness.
The boudoir, the diplomat, I'm sorry, I can't say that without thinking of The Men of Blanche's Boudoir from Golden Girls. Anywho, the boudoir diplomat saw Betty get her best reviews of the year. This could be in part to her return to her My Girl type of character, this time named Helene. Audiences and critics alike probably wanted to see her, My Girl, back on the screen again. Regardless of her hits or misses in 1930, Betty was one of the busiest actresses in the talkies, so busy that she had to turn down the lead in her old friend Lon Chaney's talking picture debut, The Unholy Three, and recommended her good friend Lila Lee to take her place. This actually ended up being the only film that Lon Chaney made as a talkie before his untimely death soon after. Betty moved into 1931, still a very much in-demand actress, with some hits and misses under her belt, but so had everyone. Her first film for the year at RKO was The Lady Refuses, which I mentioned at the start of this video. In it, Betty is June, a down-on-her-luck woman on the verge of prostitution when a chance encounter with a kind millionaire changes her life. When she is almost arrested, the millionaire, Gilbert Emery, pretends she is his niece and takes her in. She asks to repay the favor and help him somehow, and the millionaire asks her to try to get his playboy son, played by John Darrow, away from his evil, gold-digging hussy of a girlfriend, played by Margaret Livingston. June sets out to capture the son's heart, but in doing so finds love herself with the father. Several other comedic and dramatic situations ensue. In all of these situations, Betty portrays June as a kind, virtuous woman that is in control of every situation and commands any room in which she enters. But she's also vulnerable and sensitive. She has a past, but refuses to let it dictate her future. Sometimes with just the move of an eyebrow or the adjustment of her stance, Betty conveys volumes as June. Take a look.
Oh, blimey. A short life and a merry one.
Yes.
No use trying to thank you. It was wonderfully sporting of you to take a chance on me. A stranger. Off the street.
Oh, I say, that's rather an ugly way of putting it, off the streets.
Why did you do it?
Well, you look lonely and a bit frightened. And it just happens that I am, too.
You, lonely and scared.
Yes.
That's about as true as that I'm your niece.
Rather neat, wasn't it?
One reviewer from Photoplay stated, "I have never seen a creature more gloriously physical than Betty COMPSON in The Lady Refuses." A TCM favorite, The Lady Refuses has developed a following over the years and has recently been restored on DVD by the lovely folks at The Film Detective. It is also on YouTube restored from The Film Detective and is highly recommended. Remember to look for links on my YouTube page at Betty's Films Available to see on YouTube and other streaming services. Betty made 3 more films in 1931, all of which were melodramatic in nature, and while she got good notices for some of them, like The Gay Diplomat, it was RKO's biggest flop of the year. As 1931 moved into 1932, Betty was off the screen for over 6 months, her largest break in over a decade. During this break, she somehow lost her RKO contract and moved into starring and supporting roles at Poverty Row B Studios, with an occasional supporting or bit part at a major studio. What happened? We do know that in 1930, she divorced her husband and sometimes director, James Cruise. It apparently was a messy divorce. Cruise had gone bankrupt, probably due to the stock market crash and the Great Depression, which led to Betty having to sell off a lot of her property and valuables, including a mansion. She was probably still dealing with all of this stress by 1932. She only made 5 films, almost all of which were at Poverty Row, between 32 and 33, and was off the screen all of 1934, probably due to her second marriage to agent Irving Weinberg, which also would only last a few years. In late 1935, she was back and ready to work again, making 2 films, including False Pretenses, where she co-starred as Clarissa, a flirty, wealthy, somewhat older woman who tries to catch a rich bachelor that loves a younger woman. It was a vampy, sassy, character-type role that many actresses in their 30s and 40s fell into in the 1930s, including most notably Bebe Daniels in 42nd Street. However, as you can see here, she still commands the screen with her vitality and nuances and physicality. Per usual, she seals the show. Take a look.
I didn't.
Oh, dear. Do I have to start all over again? How long are you going to stay?
Oh, a couple of weeks, maybe longer.
Good. That'll give me a little time to work on you. Still broke?
Oh, quite the contrary. Affluent. I'm a promoter now.
Too bad. I thought if I couldn't get you any other way, you might marry me for my money.
If I ever need any more money, Clarissa, I'll be sure to let you know.
Just a minute now. What is this promotion scheme?
Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that. It's a new beauty idea. There's never been anything just like it. It's going to clean up.
Put me down for 1,000 shares.